What's up, everybody? This one here is Shout the Commenter, LaJoy Braxton. The autopsy, yes. Now, we have not seen the release of an autopsy. Something so basic and so rudimentary, you would think you wouldn't even need to speak of it. For every type of assault case, every type of murder, there's usually been an autopsy that dictates how someone was deceased. Now, although this is not normally presented to the public, it is spoken of. We've heard no news or speaking of this more than we heard of a manhunt. Now, what's most important is that in this situation, instead of us focusing on the fact there's no autopsy, even though that makes things seem more fake in my mind to some degree, because we've seen it released for many different instances, and this is something that's usually not withheld. We also don't understand too much about what's going on with security cameras. That brings me again to the commenter, and shout to her. She actually mentioned both these things in a very intelligent, consecutive manner. I thought of them separately, and because I have so much more that I want to discuss, I shouted her out at the top, and I'm going to actually mention what she said, yes. Now, something very specific about a BMW X, which is a BMW 10. These cars actually have video camera in them. So there's consistent viewership within the car, and it keeps a recording. You know, I kind of looked that up and things, and that is a possible feature in the car. Now, what I'm expecting to happen is them to come out and say, well, yeah, he didn't have that feature in his car. He asked for it not to be there. Something crazy to say it, even though I'm thinking that's factory made. But whatever. This is if, since you guys want to say that, if this was in the car, why wasn't it retrieved? And if it was retrieved in order to stop from people actually seeing what was going on with it? Now, these are very crucial things because, as we know, this has been a case of life and death. When we deal with life and death cases, we're also missing so much evidence. Again, circumstantial must be tangible. Circumstantial evidence has not only been slighted, but it has not even been presented in a way that we can call for tangibility. The direct evidence would be who's first on the scene. And you would think we would be looking for Riva Motorsports. We haven't heard from Riva Motorsports, let alone other facilities that were around that may have had video. We also heard that the shop clerks were willing to get up and testify. Is that what your direct evidence is going to be? What, that they see them walk into the store and buy the items that were allegedly used? Now, how come the evidence was played with? What the witness said he saw was red mass. Then we seen an individual hop up on social media taking pictures with red mask. But then police double back during the investigation, said, oh no, it was guys who went to the store and brought masks. Why was it played with so loosely? And how come persecution has not come to this witness named Victor, is what we called him? What did he do? How did he get out of that? That's one of the things I don't understand. If I was to hop up on here, okay, during let's say the midst of a crime, right after it happened, take pictures, take photos, do certain things, and present them a certain way, it would be deemed as not only hearsay, but it will also be persecuted, because I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not allowed to try and do a cop's job for them. Investigators are paid to do their job. So why did this guy get a pass for doing that, alleging certain things, having a news reporter, allegedly, and then sliding off the scene after taking a photo of his dead body? All of this is still in question. These things have yet to be answered, let alone the evidence surrounding the tangibility of it. And it's not even hearsay. There's so much contradictory added to the situation that my inquisitive mind is like, okay, how come he wasn't picked up and questioned? How come the news reporter didn't have things confiscated from them? Now, I also have details. Allegedly, there was legit news that reached out to ask for evidence and photos of what you had presented and done first on the scene so that they can have the rights to it? Did they sell these things off for money? Because if they brought that, I want to say, sadly, you probably brought a dud. Because we already have circumstantial evidence to prove them wrong. Therefore, it's not tangible. It's not even intangible. It's false. Why would I be first on the scene collecting false evidence if there was nothing legit or real about what I do? You know, it's something that's very questionable, to say the least. But ultimately, if we look at the whole situation and we see what he was facing, let alone coupled with what was going on, it starts to create a bigger and brighter picture. The biggest and brighter picture it creates is, why were they allowed to do this? That's the ultimate question. And the only people that can answer this would be authorities. You guys govern and do so much. Again, I still have stories where you released overdose couples in cars with their kids in the back. So if I'm allowed to release photos of an overdose couple with their kid kicking and screaming in the back, why wouldn't I be able to get a photo or picture of the real dead body as we normally do, or an autopsy? It really doesn't make sense. And if this was the case, then you should have set a rule to releasing nothing. It's better to do and say and release nothing than to release lies. What do you actually gain in releasing lies? What is actually presented? Nothing circumstantial. What facts have been presented to lead to other facts of the situation? That's ultimately what I'm trying to understand. The moment I understand this, it will become clear to exactly what motive was. I may even figure out who the passenger was. You see, because there's only a certain amount of people that could have been sitting by him. It would have had to be someone who had something to gain. Now, also in this autopsy video, I think it's only right to mention, look at the amount of people there were and think of the amount that he actually had. If I think of the fact he had, let's say $50,000, and it's $50,000, and there's 4 suspects arrested. Well, let's presume they all took allegedly $10,000 a piece to make $40,000. Who took the other $10,000 and got away with their cut? Again, this brings us back to there being a 5th person. I am telling you, by my thoughts, by looking at tangible evidence that was circumstantial, because there is no direct evidence. That's the thing. You see, that's the game. There's no direct evidence. They're trying to create direct evidence that's not there. So let's look at circumstantial evidence that turns into tangible evidence. There's no direct evidence. So where does that leave us? Who has the other 10,000? Alleging they each got a cut of 10,000. That would make sense for there to be a 5th person. So would this be the passenger? And if that's the case, why would he be called the uncle? Because I highly doubt it was the uncle. By my opinion, I'm thinking the uncle was something handed out as a false pretense of identity. Because if you think about it, there wouldn't be no penalty because there were no exact authority asking the question. Matter of fact, they didn't question anybody from what I understand, let alone the first on the scene are shaky in their opinion on what actually happened. We break this down bit by bit and piece by piece because this is how everything must be thought through. Any case I do from here on is going to be thought through the same way. It's going to be looked at the same way, and it's going to be objective in this manner. Now, I'm not picking out who the good and who the bad is, but what I am telling you is that looking at evidence being so circumstantial and facts leading to such dead ends, that is how we produce a setup. Because, and I gotta say, it's a really good setup up to the point of the witness and the news reporter. You get what I'm saying? They botched the whole thing. Because the moment you allowed them to reach that out to social media in that way and produce the outcomes they have without any investigators questioning their motives, questioning the situation, or even asking legit questions about why they were taking pictures of the dead body instead of calling 911. Because, again, who had medical training? See, a lot of this is very unclear, and I'm beginning to develop new conclusions on the situation. Not that it's far off of my solved video, but it's adding new parties. And that's what's blowing my mind. It's really adding new parties to the situation. So I want to ask, where's the autopsy for the body that is normally produced when we do have a deceased member? Especially someone this high profile that was put to rest so fast. And they really did put him to rest so fast. We really didn't have time to even ask for the autopsy. I expect the doctor that did the autopsy may be unreachable in many different ways. I also expect investigators to say that security footage may have been damaged. Something may have happened. Be prepared for these things when they're released. And then just understand, as we're looking for tangible evidence, it's going to be very few, if any. You're going to have top level investigators to present tangible evidence to throw me off. That's all I'm saying. You're really going to have top investigators, because after looking at this from top to bottom, these guys are going to have to be professionals. To be real with you, I have an idea what tangible evidence would be, but again, I do not do these guys' job. I shouldn't have to tell an officer of 20 years, 30 years, 10 years, how he's supposed to find tangible evidence in a situation out of circumstantial evidence when they're just too dumb to be played by social media. You guys really dropped the ball on this case, if we're considering this real. But you already know how I rock. You already know. All rights reserved.